Hey, what's up? Welcome to the first impressions of the AirPods 3 from Apple. I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into this. Let's go ahead and start with the build. Now the build, quite frankly, seems a lot like the Pros. It seems like they just took the chassis of the Pros, subtracted the in-ear ear tip, and gave you just the plastic shell, which is going to be either a good thing or a bad thing depending on your ears. A lot of these Apple products, unfortunately, because of the way that they're designed, they either work for your ears or they don't. So far, I've been pretty lucky on the Apple Roulette, where almost all of their in-ears have worked for my ears just fine. Every year though, these things get a little bit more Stormtrooper-esque, and they have so many black outcroppings and sensors and microphones along this earbud that they may as well just make this thing black. But I suspect what Apple is doing is they're just holding back the colors until they basically feel like they need to produce them, and then they'll do like all the different colors, kind of like the rest of a lot of their other equipment. Okay, so features. A big thing with these is the spatial audio. That's the biggest addition to the functionality of this device, aside from just like general improvements of battery life and things like that. Now, the way that this works, and I do want to talk about this for just a second, because I think a lot of people are probably going to be curious about how this works if they're looking at this as their first device. Okay, so spatial audio works in a couple different ways. One of the things that it's doing is it's applying an EQ to the music, an optional EQ. This is not on all the time, but it applies an optional EQ to the music where it kind of enhances the apparent space of the imaging in the soundstage. Now, the other much more important thing that it's doing is it's providing head tracking. Now, I do want to give credit to Odyssey, who is probably the first official headphone that I think I saw do this. On their Mobius, they had this head tracking technology. It was actually really cool for gaming. Now, Apple has made their own head tracking, and they really popularized that with the Maxes. The basic way that this works is it provides a soundstage in front of you. So you have the singer in front, the drums to the right, the guitar to the left, for example. And instead of when you turn your head, the music also turning with it, the music stays in the same place. So you got that singer, the drums, and the guitar. So in a way, it's almost like listening to a pair of speakers out in front of you. Doesn't quite illusion that well, but this is pretty cool. And honestly, with the right music, if the music just happens to pair really well with the frequency tuning that Apple provides for the spatial audio stuff, and the performance is good enough, this can actually be a very, very cool effect. And it's something that I find myself turning off and turning on, just going back and forth with a bunch of different songs. And I think it's pretty fun. Now, one thing to note here is that you will get different experiences on different apps. Just as an example here, Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever album, this was mixed in Dolby Atmos. Now on Apple Music, this icon has kind of three Soundwave looking things to the left, to the right, and to the top of this head. And it looks like it should be doing a complete surround of on top and on the sides. But if you go to Tidal, there's only two of those Soundwave things on the right and on the left. Now, I do think what this could be is that Apple Music is using Dolby Atmos audio and Tidal is not. I believe that Tidal is just taking the 2-channel version of that song, and the spatial audio is converting that to be in the spatial audio sound. This minor difference in this icon might be a way of identifying that, but I'm not 100% sure on this. Now, what's interesting is that going to this album, listening without Dolby Atmos, without the head tracking, without the spatial audio, they both sound exactly the same, like they should. They're both really good sounding applications. Now, when you turn on the head tracking, I would say that the functionality for both is actually equivalent. However, the sound quality on Tidal is far better. Things sound much more full, much more vivid, much more lively. Now, I'm not sure if this is some sort of enhancement that Tidal is doing, or if those three little sound waves, the two different icons that we're seeing on different apps for the same album that are both mixed in Dolby Atmos, I'm not sure if that's playing into it, but that whole album sounds not just a little bit, but drastically better for the spatial audio on Tidal than it does Apple Music. Why? Don't know. Now, in sort of a roundabout way though, this does sort of inspire people to be more interactive with their music. I do really like that. As an active music listener myself, as a person who really loves music and likes to show people music, I like when people are engaged. And, you know, a feature like this may take somebody who is a completely passive listener and turn them into a little bit more of an active listener. And I think that's a good thing. Some additional features, the battery life has been extended to 30 hours as Apple claims. I haven't had these for long enough. Again, this is just a first impressions to actually run out the battery on this. So far it's been pretty good. They're now sweat and water resistant with an IPX4 rating. There is no audio pass-through like there is with the AirPod Pros. However, these do not create a very good seal. So you can really hear a lot, like I can hear just fine like this, just with these plugged in. And so the pass-through would literally just be stopping the audio and you'd hear everything around you. That is an upside to these. It is also a downside to these. If you wanted to create a seal, if you want ANC, you're gonna have to go with the Pros. And still on the charging, there is no USB-C. Shame on you, Apple. Okay, so last thing to talk about is perhaps the most boring part about this headphone, which is gonna be the sound quality. It's not boring because it sounds bad. It sounds decently good, but it's definitely an Apple tuning. This is a very familiar Apple tuning that you've seen before. It's got a little bit of highs, a little bit of lows. It doesn't extend crazy deep down. The only real headphone that extends well to like 20 or 30 hertz is the Max, which is the full size expensive ass headphone. The Pros do get a little bit lower in bass. If you're more of a bass head and you want an IEM and you're stuck on Apples and you don't want to go outside of that, I would probably reach for the Pros. They're a little bit more, but I feel like the sound quality for a person who really cares about sound quality is going to appreciate those a little bit more. People who are more interested in general function or phone calls, I think can stick with these or the previous second gen, which is still available actually, I think for $129, I think, something like that. Those might be a slightly better option for just a general consumer, just caring about a little bit of music, but more functionality, FaceTime, phone calls, etc. This, again, pretty typical of Apple though. There is a notable lack of mid-range. Now on a really mid-range forward song, like if you're listening to anything from Adele, Sam Smith, people like that, they're going to come across just fine. They're going to come across fairly full, but as soon as something kind of steps back, sometimes The Weeknd mixes his vocals to be pretty far back in the mix and they're not super forward. Those can come across a little bit far out there, a little bit hard to grasp and really get a tangible feel for the vocalist. That is something that kind of lacks on these that I feel like other cheaper IEMs can do really well. For example, the Moondrop Aria is a far better bass headphone, sound staging headphone, and mid-range headphone, but it's wired and it lacks all the technological features that this offers. So I'll have much more thoughts and comparisons with these little guys in the full review. For now, I'll say it's kind of the same thing that it's always been in terms of like audiophiles versus functionality people. So if you're more of a functionality person and more of a devices toolkit sort of a guy, these are obviously going to be better. These are going to be far superior. But if you're more of a just raw sound quality, I think there are definitely better options. I would definitely check out that Aria. That's like half the price of these, and it sounds a lot better. But again, functionality versus sound. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Until the next video, my name's Josh, signing off. Peace.